So here's what's happening. The requirements are that you make a thrown and assembled bowl. That's all I'm saying. You can interpret that a lot of different ways. I'm going to show you one way right now, and I'm going to talk about a couple other ways. These are a few options, but there are an infinite number of options or solutions to that question of how do you make a thrown and assembled bowl. Starting with, what is a bowl? Something you can. What was my minimum definition of a bowl? It's got to be able to hold Cheerios. If it doesn't hold Cheerios, it's not a bowl. If it can hold Cheerios, it's a bowl. Okay, so thrown and assembled. What does assembled mean?
Putting something together.
Putting something together. What is the minimum number of things you need to put together in order to assemble something?
Two. Or one thing.
You got to have at least two things, right? Can you have more than two? Yes. Okay. Thrown means at least one of those, minimum two, things is born on the wheel. You guys see how this works? So at least it can hold Cheerios. It's made of at least two parts, two or more, and at least one of those parts is made on the wheel. It can be altered after that, can be changed. So I'm going to show you one here that is going to be basically I'm going to throw a cylinder without a bottom, and I'm going to pull those walls out as far as I can, and then I'm going to take the walls off and change the shape from this round circle, which is kind of I get bored of every once in a while, and then we're going to roll a slab bottom and attach that to the walls. So what I'm going to go through right here are the cylinder throwing steps, which I hope you remember. Who said that? Not at all? Okay, you have that handout that had all the written directions on it. Pull that out. So centering, same techniques. And now I'm going to start opening. And what's going to be different here is when I open, I'm going to go all the way to the wheel. In fact, almost all the way. I'm going to leave about 1 millimeter of clay there, just because it helps the walls stay attached. Otherwise, they can sometimes come loose and come off. So I can see some wheel down there. And slowly, 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 I'm pulling this out. Got a little bit of a wiggle. I'm going to slow down. So the secret to not getting a wobble when you do this is to pull really slowly. And keep re-wetting. I like these types of vessels for one of my favorite foods of all time. A type of casserole, like mac and cheese, or potatoes au gratin, shepherd's pie, chicken pot pie, any kind of baked casserole. So good. Okay, so now we have a rollover. Remember this? Good old rollover. And I'm going to do a few pulls. And I'm going to try to keep these walls pretty straight. You can flare them out, you can flare them in, but straighter, the closer to straight they are, the easier it's going to be to change the shape. So big squeeze and pull. And especially when it's this wide. And I'm not giving a size requirement. I personally like to make a lot of mac and cheese when I make it. So I'm going bigger. And I am also going to flare this lip out substantially for a couple reasons. Have you ever made mac and cheese?
Yeah.
And the baked mac and cheese? You make the roux and everything? And a Mornay sauce. Anyway, you put all that mac and cheese in there, you put it in the oven with some breadcrumbs, some cheese on top, and you bake it. And then when you're ready to take it out, you've got to get in there with gloves, right? Because it's really hot. So it's going to be nice to have some kind of thing to grab on.
I think we put it on the tray.
You could just put it on the tray, which is very smart in case it bubbles over. Doesn't get all over your oven. Okay, so this is about where I'm going to stop. Do a little shape and scrape here. This is a pretty simple form, but I'm going to try to make it more interesting with what I do with it afterwards. Okay, to get this off the wheel, first try to get most of the water out here. You guys see how I left a tiny bit of clay on the bottom? There's not much there, but there's just enough to where if you leave nothing down there, sometimes these walls can come loose and just go flying off the wheel. But I'm going to undercut it on the inside and the outside. So first on the outside, this you've already done before. There's my undercut. Now the inside undercut. See that? Okay, that's with the pointy end of the modeling tool. And now to make sure I've shaped and scraped as much of the clay off, or the wet slip off of this as possible, because I'm going to pick this up with my hands, which is tricky when it's this size, but again, you could do this smaller. Now to cut it, rather than drag, oops, that inside edge looks a little messy. Let's try that again. Rather than drag the whole wire through, so I'm going to lay this down a little bit more. I'm going to do a little trick. Actually, I better take this. I would if I was going to pull all the way through, but I'm just going to do this. Now it's all the way cut, right? Should be. According to my calculations, it should be. Now getting this off is a little tricky. First, the cleaner and drier your hands are, the better. Where's my mud towel? There it is. Two clean hands, as many fingers as possible. I'm going to grab one end, and I'm just going to pick it up.
So it should be kind of thick.
What?
It should be kind of thick so that it doesn't break.
It's about 3/8 of an inch, about standard thickness for something this size. Yeah. Not super thick. Now, I'm not going to mess with it too much right now. I'm going to maybe pop it outside for about 15 minutes just so it's dry enough to where it's not wet and sticky. Then I'll go in and kind of pop it up. Do I want an oval? Do I want something that's kind of wavy? Do I want something triangular? Do I want something rectangular? That's all up to you. Do you need a demo on how to roll a slab again?
No.
You guys know how to do that. So I would roll the slab. I go put this outside, then go roll your slab. Get them kind of drying together. Realize that this one's going to be a little bit wetter than the slab, so don't let your slab dry too much. And by the end of the period, try to get them so you can put this piece on top of the slab and tent them together for at least 24 hours before you do your scoring and slipping. That way they can kind of equalize in terms of the moisture. If you attach a dry slab to wet walls, what happens is you're going to get cracking on that piece, and you don't want that. Let me show you some examples of finished pieces here.